What's up, guys? Welcome back to the F1 career mode here with Sauber. It is round number 4 for the season 1. It's taking place at the Sochi Olympic Park in Russia. As you can see, this is the development comparison screen that we got at the start of the weekend. And this is just an illustration to see where we are. We're currently bottom of the pile at the moment, but with McLaren just in front of us. And there's a massive gap between McLaren and the rest of the midfield team. So we've got a bit of a gap to close up, but I'm hoping if we continue to get the resource points, we will be able to make those major steps forward and get into that midfield pack as soon as possible. We've got an aerodynamics upgrade hopefully coming in Spain as long as it succeeds, and hopefully that will actually put us level in terms of performance with McLaren if they don't have upgrades coming on their car in the near future. We'll have to wait and see on that front. With regards to the engine, we're going to be using the first engine for the practice session and then switching back to the second engine for the qualifying and the race. So without further ado, let's get into practice.
Welcome to a glorious day here by the Black Sea. We're at the Sochi Autodrome for what could be a really exciting Grand Prix weekend. The final alterations are being made in the garages as the teams prepare to send their cars out for the first time. I'm here with Anthony Davidson once again. Nice to see you, Ant, and I wanted to ask you about how you go about improving the car over the course of a practice session. How much would you say is already known from the pre-race simulations? And how much do you have to do, how much do you have to work on with a real car on a real circuit?
Well, that's a good question, Crofty, and I suppose the simple answer is that there's no such thing as too much information. As you say, the bigger teams have very complex simulations, vast numbers of clever people crunching the numbers back at base, but what they can't tell you is stuff like how the track condition's going to be, or what the temperature's going to be doing over the course of the day, and how all of that's going to be interacting with the tyre. There are so many millions of tiny variables involved in getting these cars around a racetrack quickly, but the computer can't tailor the car to a driver's specific balance requirements. At some point, you still need to put a human being in there and have them feel it through the seat of their pants. And that's why we end up with different drivers having different setups. So what I'm trying to say is, Crofty, nothing beats on-track testing.
Alright, welcome to the Russian Grand Prix here at the Sochi circuit, beginning practice 1 with the track acclimatization, as always, like we've done in the last 3 Grand Prix. This circuit is actually turning into one of my favourites to drive on the game, primarily because it's relatively easy to drive. There's not too many tricky corners. There is one particular corner, though, at the end of Sector 2, which is probably the most challenging of the corners. But also the fact that the tyre wear around this circuit is also pretty negligible, especially the fact that we've now got harder tyres and they last a lot longer compared to what we had in previous seasons. We come across the line to finish our track acclimatization. As you can see, we managed to get purple laps in the first 2 laps, which means we've got the maximum number of resource points again for this particular practice program. Anyways, we then move on into the tyre wear test, and again, this is just to illustrate my point on the actual tyre wear front. As you can see, we're well into the purple area for the tyre wear. A little bit of a messed up the exit of that little chicane there. But we're going to gain it back, though, into the final 2 corners right about now. You can see we're right in the middle of that purple area, and just as we cross the line, we're very near the end of that, and we end up getting the maximum resource points out of the tyre wear test as well. We then moved on into practice 2. Unfortunately, it was quite a wet practice. As you can see, we're currently doing the fuel consumption program. I think this was probably our best opportunity to actually get maximum resource points in the fuel consumption part of things. It took quite a few attempts. We took 2 laps, but as we come through the last 2 corners, we are just on the edge between the green and purple sections. We come across the line now. We just about get the purple objective, though, and that means we're going to get maximum resource points for the first time in this particular practice program, which was absolutely fantastic. We now let Alonso go through right there. We then moved on into a race strategy simulation on the wet tyres. I know it wasn't going to be available. It probably wasn't going to rain in the race, but unfortunately, the gearbox gremlins came back like we had at the end of the race in Bahrain. This time around, it's the 6th gear that's playing up. As you can see, not very good in terms of our acceleration down the straight, though. As you can see, starting to lose a little bit of time on that front. However, this particular occasion, the gearbox problem kind of went away because as you can see now, we can actually shift up and shift down into 6th gear. If we accelerate out of this corner right now, we're into 5th, and now we're into 6th. As you can see, it's actually working again. So, don't know what happened there. Maybe it was just one of those random glitches or something like that. But yeah, we managed to get that done, and also meant that we could get the maximum resource points out for the race strategy. I decided to run out again a bit later on just to try and get an extra couple of resource points. We're now into qualifying for practice 3, but again, the gearbox issue comes back. Again, it's 6th gear, that is the problem, and unfortunately that's going to probably cost us a bit of time during our practice run, though. But because I'm quite liking this circuit, and the fact I seem to have found a little bit of speed, it wasn't much of a hindrance in terms of the lap time. As I cut to the end of the lap, as you can see, we actually get the purple lap time despite having this gearbox issue. So really, really impressive. But I'm starting to get a bit frustrated with this gearbox issue now, and I really was considering actually switching out then. But I thought, let's see what happens in this extra race strategy we do.
We've lost one of the gears. The transmission is significantly damaged. We're down a gear.
And that message from the engineer was the final straw for me with regards to this gearbox. I didn't know which gear was failing this time around, but because of this, I decided I needed to take a penalty. I didn't want to deal with this gearbox issue for the rest of the weekend from qualifying and also the race. In fact, I had to have this has to last 2 more race weekends. Bit frustrating the fact that it only has 64% wear when we've got engine components that have got more wear and have yet to have any problems. So one of those things, I guess, we may just have to invest in a little bit more of the durability upgrades in the tech tree, but that's a story for another time. We're going to take a penalty here. Let's hope we don't run into any more of these issues. We shouldn't do because it's a brand new, fresh gearbox, but fingers crossed that no bad luck happens to us, and let's get into qualifying.
Welcome back to Sochi. We're about to be joining the action down in the pit lane as the cars get ready to embark on their qualifying runs. This is the kind of track that eats rear tyres for breakfast, or so I'm told by more experienced drivers than myself.
No matter how good a driver is at managing their throttle application to limit rear slip, they can't always overcome a car that's inherently bad at looking after its rear tyres. Here we have a lot of low-speed corner exits, which means a whole load of energy, heat and tyre wear.
Alright, here we are in qualifying. As you can see, a much brighter day this time around for our qualifying run. Again, like always, the first lap's really just a sighter lap, just to make sure we've got a lap time on the board and that we've got a delta to compare ourselves against. And the first lap was okay. I think it could have been a little bit better. As we now cut on to the end of the second lap, as you can see, we're up on our lap time as we come towards the final corner. I do make a little bit of a corner cut though into that corner, but that does move us up a little bit ahead of Daniel Kvyat for now, up into P8. That does go down to P14, as you can see right now as we come towards the end of our final lap. As you can see, the timer is ticking down in Q1, but we are going to improve our lap time. We don't improve position, but that was an improvement in our lap time, and at the moment we are currently sitting in 14th and have an opportunity to get into Q2 for the first time this season. And actually, as we come to the end of qualifying 1 and we look at the standings that are in the lap times, actually, as you can see, we are in Q2 for the first time this season. So a bit of a bummer, the fact that we had to take a penalty, and it looks like we're going to be starting last anyway, despite the big effort that the team and also myself have put in to get ourselves into Q2 for the first time this year, at the expense of the hometown hero Daniel Kvyat, the Russian, out in Q1 at his home Grand Prix with Palmer, Alonso, Wehrlein splitting the 2 McLarens, and Van Dorn making up the rest of the guys that failed to make it into Q2. But this is uncharted territory for me in this game. We're into Q2 for the first time this season. It's fantastic to see. Let's just see how close we can get to the rest of the field. If we can get ourselves into 15th or something like that, or even, sorry, 14th, then that would mean that we wouldn't be starting last on the grid. As we now come to the end of our second lap, let's see where we end up at the moment. We're currently sitting in P8. We're now going to cut to the end of the session. Unfortunately, we didn't make it into Q3, but double unfortunate is the fact that we only qualified in 15th place, only a couple of tenths off Nico Hulkenberg in 14th. So that means we're going to be starting last for the Russian Grand Prix, but I'm confident the fact that we've got the race pace to try and make moves and actually move up the grid, and possibly maybe a chance of points if we get a little bit of luck in terms of the race, in terms of the strategy, and also in terms of if there's a safety car or also reliability issues in front. But we're now going to cut to the tech tree. We're actually going to purchase another upgrade, and that because I highlighted the fact that I was sick and tired of the gearbox issues that we were having this weekend, and also what happened at the end of Bahrain. I decided to purchase a gearbox upgrade where the gearbox wear should be 30% reduced, so fingers crossed it can last more than 3.5 Grand Prix, and we won't have to deal with many more penalties for the rest of this season. But without further ado, let's now get into the race. Let's see what we can do from the back of the grid.
This was a circuit that I think in its inaugural race got off to a bit of a shaky start, but since then it's really drawn the fans in and become a very popular event. What do you think changed?
Well, this just goes to show the importance of fixing problems as and when you discover them. As a complete unknown quantity in 2014, the tyre choice was quite conservative, which didn't really allow much in terms of different strategy options. So it was pretty much as you were from lights to flag. But that was a great learning experience, and we came back the next year and had a really exciting Grand Prix, with battles for the podium going on all the way to the final lap. So hopefully we'll be treated to more of the same this year.
With that then, let's run through the grid order. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Valtteri Bottas that completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Raikkonen, Max Verstappen and Ricciardo, Massa, Perez, Grosjean and Esteban Ocon, Sainz, Magnussen, Lance Stroll and Hülkenberg, Kvyat, Palmer, Fernando Alonso and Pascal Wehrlein. Van Dorn and a Sauber rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Alright, welcome to the grid, ready to start the Russian Grand Prix race. Let's have a quick look at the race strategy before we get into the formation lap. The team has suggested to start on the ultra soft tyres and then switch to the super softs. However, I decided to make a change in that strategy, just one minor one, and that was to switch both stints around, so starting on the super soft tyre and then switch to the ultra softs later on in the race, primarily because I just want to be quick at the end, and therefore we'll have an opportunity to possibly overtake some cars at the end. If there is a safety car that's thrown at any point during the race and that bunches the field up, we may have an opportunity to then make up some places along with the start that we make. Let's just have to wait and see if anything of that sort happens, and yeah, we just have to be a little bit lucky on with regards to the safety car. I also added a little bit more fuel to the tank, just so we had a little bit of rich fuel mixture to use at certain points of the race if we manage to get into the DRS zone of a couple of faster cars that we need to if we want to try and overtake them. But yeah, the objective of the race for me is to try and pretty much beat my teammate and also beat the McLarens, but also try and see if we can get ourselves into the midfield battle, because our pace has been incredible and been pretty good, and I've been really impressed with the car around the circuit. I think maybe because it's quite easy to drive for me, but the fact is I'm quite looking forward to this race. It's a bit of a shame I had to take the penalty with the gearbox, but it's one of those things. When it comes to the end of the formation lap though, I was getting a bit worried because a glitch happened where I started ghosting into Stoffel Van Dorn, which was a bit weird, so I thought, oh no, I'm going to get a penalty here for overtaking Van Dorn just before the start of the race. But fortunately, nothing of that sort happened, and we're now taking up our grid slot. We are the last car, so we don't have to wait for anybody else to finish their formation lap. We're ready to start the race right now. Lights out, and away we go, and it's an okay-ish start from our end. Not so much for Wehrlein though, as Van Dorn's managed to pull up alongside our teammate as head up towards the small kick of turn 1. Wehrlein makes a little bit of contact with Van Dorn. That could have been a horrific accident if Wehrlein had turned any more to the left there, but fortunately nothing happened as we now go up the inside into the first big braking zone of the Grand Prix, getting past both Wehrlein and also Van Dorn. Unfortunately not getting past Alonso at that particular stage. We're now following him through the long sweeping left-hander of turn 3, trying to set him up for a move up the inside into turn 4, but Alonso is just a bit too far in front of us at that particular point. There's no point risking the car on lap 1, as we've got plenty of the race to go. So we try to go up the inside into turn 5, but Alonso's able to fend us off. Again, I think those ultra soft tyres giving him a little bit more grip on that outside just for at this particular stage of the race. We're now on to the on the second DRS, what will be the second DRS straight. Wehrlein is closing in on us a little bit, which is a bit concerning, but we're closing in on Alonso at a rapid rate of knots, braking a little bit later than the McLaren, trying to get up the inside there. I was really surprised I didn't get a warning pop-up that I'd made an illegal overtake, because I had all 4 wheels off the track when I made the overtake, but maybe the fact that the game thought we were side by side, that's the reason why we didn't get that. We're going to press on anyways. We're now up into 17th place. On to lap 3 now, and actually, as you can see, we're able to keep up with a couple of the midfield runners. So that's Jolie and Palmer in front, and in front of him we've got Magnussen and Kvyat. I think those two guys are on the same strategy as us and are on the super soft tyres. Palmer, however, is on the ultra soft, so it is getting held up, which is allowing us to stay with this little group here. We're now in the DRS range of Palmer on lap 4, and may have a possibility of overtaking a midfield car properly without them having any sort of problems. Up the inside that we go of Palmer, and we've moved up another position up into 16th place. Really, really good start so far to this race for us. I mean, I wasn't expecting too much, especially after all the engine penalties, but on to lap 5 now. We're in the DRS range of Magnussen. That Ferrari engine should be a little bit better than ours, but I think the fact that we're using rich fuel mixture has allowed us to close in on the Dane, and we're now going up the inside like we did with Palmer, and we're going to make another overtake up the inside into turn 2, and we're now moved up another position. Coming to the end of lap 5 now, we've actually got a yellow flag that's in play. Possible virtual safety car might be deployed. We've had a virtual safety car in every single race so far this year, and it's actually Fernando Alonso that has pulled up with some sort of problem. They were running at the back anyway, so it's been a really disappointing weekend for McLaren, especially the fact that both Saubers are now in front of Alonso, just pulling off just before the final corner.
Embarrassing. Really embarrassing.
That is one frustrated Spaniard. As we now cut back on board to our point of view, a couple of laps later, it is lap 8. Magnussen is fancying his position back as we head up towards turn 6 and I think turn 7. The proximity meter said he was up the inside there. Very unusual place to pass though. I thought he probably would have been a bit smarter and waited until the second DRS. But as you can see, he actually gets halfway up our inside there. But I decided to be a little bit aggressive when it comes to the defensive side of things, primarily because Magnussen has a history of defending aggressively as well, especially in real life, as Magnussen tries to go around the outside of us at the end of the second DRS, and we're able to have the inside line and hit the apex first and maintain position for now. And this battle between ourselves and the Dane continues on to lap 10. As you can see, he's again in the DRS zone of us, and the Haas car obviously is a much better car in a straight line on paper, and he goes straight round our outside. But again, we've got the inside line again and are able to hit the apex first and take the corner first, and therefore retain position for now. But as I mentioned before, this battle just raged on for a couple of laps. As we now cut to the same spot one lap later, Magnussen is closer than what he has been on previous laps. He's much further ahead than us as we head up towards the braking zone, but I think he actually has a lock-up moment, and that's why we're able to take the position back, and the opportunity for Magnussen to overtake us prior to the braking zone has gone, unfortunately for him. We're now on to lap 15. We're able to fend him off for a good chunk of laps as we now head up towards our pit stop lap. A couple of drivers have already made their pit stops because they're on the ultra soft tyres, but we've got a yellow flag and a safety car has been deployed just as Magnussen was about to overtake us there, but unfortunately he's now going to have to stick behind us. But this has worked an absolute treat for us. This is our pit stop lap and the safety car has just been deployed, so everybody's going to be going a lot slower than what they would be in race conditions, and therefore we might be able to make up a couple of places from guys that have already made pit stops. This is what caused a safety car. Felipe Massa unfortunately pulling up. He had just recently made a pit stop and now he is out of the race. As we now cut to our the entrance to the pit lane right now, Magnussen carried on, which is really interesting. I'm really surprised he didn't decide to pit at the same time as us, considering the fact he's on the same set of tyres as we speed up a little bit of the pit lane. It's a very long pit lane and it's also a very low speed limit. Excellent stop by the mechanics. We're now onto the faster ultra soft tyres. We now come out the pits. Our main objective now is to try and catch the safety car queue. It's actually quite a way away. It took us actually about a lap or so to actually get close to the back of the next car. And yeah, the main thing I had to also worry about is the very narrow pit exit. You're very easy to hit the wall if you go a bit too hastily on the throttle. We've now managed to catch up to the safety car queue just behind Nico Hulkenberg, and also pause the game just to see what the overall standings were. You can pause it when you can, but I also looked at instance, and both Ferraris have got drive-through penalties. Vettel's got one for speeding under the safety car, and Raikkonen's got it for falling too far back. So it looks like we're going to be making up 2 places here as soon as the safety car comes in, because they can't take the penalties during the safety car. So the safety car's coming in at the end of lap number 17, but also none of the drivers that were on the super soft tyre strategy that we were on, they decided not to come in when this safety car was called. So really, really strange that they decided not to pit in. We're going to gain quite a few places here, and we're in with a real opportunity to score our first F1 points and Sauber's first point since Brazil 2016, as Hamilton now gets the race underway again at the front alongside his teammate Valtteri Bottas. They are probably going to be nailed on for a 1-2 unless mechanical issues happen, because both Ferraris are going to be out of the race due to the fact that they're going to be taking the penalties. As we now get underway with racing again, very nearly running into the back of Hulkenberg as we head into towards the final corner. I tried my best to stick with him as best as I could to try and make a move earlier on, but unfortunately we're too far back, and we're now having to focus on Jolie and Palmer as we head up towards the onto the straight, as we head up towards turn 2. We're now going to cut to lap 18. We're now onto the second DRS zone. Well, although there's no DRS in operation once the safety car restarts the race until 2 laps after the safety car. We're now going to go for a late braking manoeuvre on Nico Hulkenberg though, and I think there's a little bit of a lock-up as well as on our end, and we've just about managed to take the position away from Hulkenberg. So we've managed to make up 1 place, as now both Ferraris are going into the pit lane to serve their penalties. So real poor decision by both Ferraris to do that. I don't know whether that they got caught out by the safety car or anything like that, but also a couple of other cars coming into the pits to make their actual pit stops. So we're going to now start moving up the grid. We're now up into 8th place as the DRS is now enabled on lap 20. We've now got DRS on Esteban Ocon in front, who is the next car who's on super soft tyres as well. Again, we've got DRS in the second DRS zone. We're now possibly going to have a move up the inside of Ocon as well, like we did on Hulkenberg. It was a very close manoeuvre, I think. Ocon just about leaves the space on the exit, but we somehow get away with it. We're up into P7 now. Now onto the back of Romain Grosjean on lap 22 in the DRS zone of the French moves. He head up towards turn 2, possibly going up the inside like we did on his teammate. Grosjean locks up though and makes the move a little bit easier for us than what it could be, and we're now up into an impressive 6th place here. This is just absolutely insane how suddenly the fortunes have changed since the gearbox issues back we had in practice. But Grosjean is not willing to let us keep the position. He's getting close to us though as we started lap 23, but he was not close enough to try and make a manoeuvre, and it was like very similar sort of thing that was happening for the next couple of laps. But then we got a little bit of a stroke of luck as we come through this corner right about now, and the engineer there informing us that Grosjean has got some sort of car issue, which means that's going to give us a little bit of breathing space with this fantastic position that we're currently in right now. He's going to be focused on the cars behind us. We now come on to the final lap. Ocon has managed to make his way past Grosjean, but he's going to run out of time to try and overtake us here. We're on the final lap, heading towards the last 2 corners. Now, Lewis Hamilton has won the race, so his first of the season. We're coming now through the final corner, and we're going to take an incredible 6th place.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Park Fermé.
A great win then for the Mercedes team today. So as I say that, we can see the drivers coming out now to collect their trophies. It's yet more silverware to take back to their base in Brackley after another excellent Grand Prix. And now let's take a look at the drivers' standings. Lewis Hamilton takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship after an excellent result. Moving on to the driver of the day then. Anthony Davidson, who would you go for?
From my point of view, it would have to be the Sauber driver. They fought so hard and had incredible pace at times, so I don't think anyone else did a better job today.
And now let's take a look at the constructors' standings. Mercedes moved to the top of the table. Another team that will be satisfied with this Grand Prix is Sauber, whose good result moves them further up the championship. It was great having you with us for this weekend. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Until next time though, goodbye.
Thank you very much, Anthony Davidson, for nominating me as driver of the day. Confirmation of the results from the Russian Grand Prix: Lewis Hamilton in first, Bottas in second, so Mercedes 1-2. Red Bull's in third and fourth, Ricciardo taking the final podium slot ahead of Max Verstappen. Perez in fifth, myself in impressive sixth. Ocon scoring his first points as well in 7th. Hulkenberg 8th. Raikkonen recovering to 9th despite his penalty. And Romain Grosjean, despite his car issues towards the end, is able to take the final points ahead of Jolie Palmer in 10th. If we now have a quick look at the Drivers' Championship, and as you can see, we've got a new leader at the top with Lewis Hamilton taking the lead from Kimi Raikkonen by a 3-point margin ahead of both Ferraris. Now, Ricciardo moves ahead of his teammate due to the fact that he picked up a podium today, but we're one of the big movers, moving up into the top 10 with our first points of the year. Also, Esteban Ocon moving up into 11th after his first points, as I mentioned previously. And if we now have a look at the Constructors' Championship, there's also a change at the top with Mercedes' first 1-2 of the season, ensuring that they are now the leaders in the Constructors' Championship. That title's probably going to go backwards and forwards between the top two teams there. Red Bull still in 3rd. We're the big movers, though, moving up into 7th place ahead of Renault, Toro Rosso, and of course McLaren. McLaren now the only team on the standings without a point so far this season. So it's nice that we're no longer one of those bottom feeder teams. It's really surprising to see Toro Rosso all the way down in 9th place, only picking up 2 points so far this season. I'm expecting them to improve, though. We're not too far away, though, from the likes of Haas and Williams, though, which is quite interesting. I very much doubt, though, we were going to beat them over the course of the season. So I hope you guys, that's going to be the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording that. It was absolutely insane how all this stuff happened. I just didn't expect that we'd just make up so many places. I didn't expect how stupid the AI would be and not pitting when the safety car came up. Maybe because they had gone past the pit lane once the safety car was called out. I have no idea, though. But yeah, the other thing is that everybody's now much more interested in me in terms of the team interest, which is quite cool. But we're not going to move anywhere just yet. Of course, we've got to make sure that we continue to do what we need to do with Sauber and try and get them into the midfield pack. But yep, that's going to be the end of today's episode. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all for round 5, which will be the official start of the European season for the Spanish Grand Prix. So until then, see you later.